Oh, shit. Oh, shit. Come on, Polly. Fuck, fuck. I'm dead.
Okay, alright, let me just look at this video.
Now, when I say unkilled, I mean how long it took top guilds to down certain bosses from when they were first available. Like...
So that's... I love how at the beginning here, it starts immediately with him saying top 10 unkilled raid bosses, and then him clarifying the obvious clickbait that he used to get people to go to the video at the beginning. Right? Just right off, right at the beginning, get that out of the way, it's done.
Say, for example, how long did it take top guilds to down Mythic Archimond after beating Mythic Manaroth? And not how long it took them to down Mythic Archimond since the first day of the opening of Hellfire Citadel. Instead, it's from when the first time they were actually able to start doing the fight. Now that that distinction is made, let's get started on the list. Number 10 is Heroic Alakir, which took 36 days to down after the first kill of Heroic Conclave of Wind. Heroic Alakir was way overtuned when it was first attempted.
You can only have like 20 people on the platform or like 15 people.
In the kill video for the first Paragon kill in 25-man, you can actually see them just straight up leave about 8 players out of the fight during phase 1.
Yeah.
Because it was actually easier to have less players in the fight for that phase. That goes to say something about how messed up the fight was if having less players made the fight easier. Number 9 is Heroic Lich King, 25-man. No. He wasn't downed until 42 days after Heroic Putricide's death.
Really?
Well, the Lich King suffered from Alakir problems of being overtuned and just generally a very difficult raid encounter. But that's understandable, seeing as he's one of Warcraft's most popular villains.
Of course he would.
Giving him anything less than a crazy hard raid fight would piss off a lot of fans.
You weren't able to do it.
The first kill wasn't achieved until the ICC stack started rolling out, giving players an extra 5% damage and healing every couple of weeks until it hit 30%. It was even thought to be an impossible fight without the ICC buff.
The fuck?
But one of the top guilds later turned off their buff and went in for a kill to prove it could be done. Way later on in the expansion,
well, yeah, they had like best in slide gear, of course.
Himself, yeah. Number 8, Alar, the Phoenix God, killed 48 days after Magtheridon's death. Despite being the first boss of Tempest Keep, he was the second hardest boss of the raid. Alar had a very hard to deal with meteor mechanic that was supposed to split damage with everyone in it.
Okay.
So the idea was to have a group of people soak it so it wouldn't wipe the raid. Only, it was overtuned and did a ton of damage, and made the fight near impossible. So, Guild had to think of creative ways to deal with the meteors, like having everyone in the raid level a Warlock to level 18 to learn Soulstone, and have half the raid get out of the raid Soulstones just to go out and die to the meteor and reds. This was technically cheating, but Blizzard never really did anything about it.
Yeah.
Other than nerfing Soulstone every chance it got to try and prevent this tactic. Another way of splitting the damage was to use
everybody in the raid, and then everybody goes inside and does the boss. Shit was hilarious.
Harder to do, but technically not cheating like the Soulstone method. Oh, and Alar would also randomly charge Clothies and one-shot them. That also contributed to his long time of being unkilled. Number 7, the Four Horsemen and Vanilla Nats.
What?
They lasted 56 days after Gothic's death.
What the fuck?
The original Four Horsemen are one of the hardest fights ever put
Weren't they like bugged?
Mainly because it had a very unique mechanic. You see, in order to do the Four Horsemen, you needed 8 tanks. And not only did you need 8 tanks,
Wow.
you needed 8 warrior tanks with a specific 4-set bonus that made it so your taunt couldn't miss.
I guess
Because in
that's-
those
yeah, okay.
days, taunt could miss, and 1 missed taunt meant a wipe on 4 horsemen.
Yep.
So the reason this fight took so long to down was basically just having to gear up 8 warrior tanks with 8 4-set bonuses to do literally 1 boss. Want to know how many other bosses besides 4 horsemen used 8 tanks?
0.
0.
Oh, I was
Number
right.
6,
How about that?
High Astromancer
happened?
Solarian. Killed 59 days after
How many
Mac
tanks you needed for
Baradon.
4 horsemen?
Another Tempest Keep boss.
Oh, 8.
This boss went
Yeah.
through 3 nerfs because it was considered too hard to kill. That, combined with most
But she
guilds
used to drop
working on
class
Alar in
trinkets, I
the same
remember her.
instance instead of High Astromancer, leads to her long unkill
I
time.
don't remember these
Her
bosses being
first
so hard.
iteration had her being
guess
a
I was in a
high health
shitty guild,
boss
so I
with a
didn't
front
know.
arc arcane missile attack that ignored arcane resistance. Its second form, after Blizzard decided that was crazy hard to beat, was a nerf to her health and arcane missiles that hit the entire raid instead of an arc cone,
Yeah.
which still
Do they
ignored
even drop
arcane
it?
resistance. Top guilds were finally able to get a kill at this version, but it was considered still too hard. It was later nerfed 2 more times to be what it is today.
It's crazy. I
Number
don't remember
2,
any of
Yogg
these.
Saron,
Okay, this one,
Alone
yeah,
in the
I remember
Darkness.
this.
Killed 70 days after Yogg won Light in the Darkness. This version of the Yogg fight with no keepers was long thought to be mathematically impossible to do.
Wow, that
Until the
seems
Chinese Guild
familiar.
Stars was able to do the fight with some really smart kiting patterns to the ads that spawned in
Yep.
the last phase. Plus, Warlocks being able to channel the boss without having to actually face it.
Right, dude.
There was one other kill before Stars got their legit kill, where the raid just exploited the encounter by evading the ads in the last phase by getting healing aggro on
That
them
was
from inside
Kriparian.
Yogg's brain room, but that one didn't count for obvious reasons. Number
Good
4,
job, Krip.
Ragnaros. Killed 74 days after Major Domo's death.
Why did it take...
Ragnaros was one of the first final bosses
Why are these
ever,
take so long?
and everyone was still pretty new
Nobody
to
knew what the
raiding,
fuck they
so
were
his
doing.
long kill
I
time
guess
shouldn't
not.
be all that surprising, really. It was simply a much tougher and long as hell fight compared to
Wow.
everything else in Molten Core. Number 3, Cro-Magus, tied with Ragnaros at 74 days after Ebonrock's death.
What the fuck?
Cro-Magnus was one of the more technically challenging fights in Vanilla, when not many fights besides maybe final bosses
That's
of the
so
raid
weird.
were. It was also in the same
Yeah, I guess
raid
people didn't
where
have
2
DBM.
of the hardest boss fights ever were the first and second boss of the instance, causing many guilds to break up before even getting to Cro-Magus.
That's true.
As for the fight itself, well, it was just a very complicated fight. We have many like it today, but it was a new thing for vanilla raiders, so it took them some time to get used to the mechanics. Once they did,
It was
though,
actually hard,
it
and you
became
had
a
to do
lot
the
easier to
mechanics.
do on attempts afterwards.
That's why
There
it was
wasn't
so hard
really
to beat.
any bugs or over-tuning mistakes that half the other bosses on this list have. Cro-Magnus was just a technically challenging fight.
It was the first one we'd
Number
ever had.
2, Cthulhu, killed 86 days after the Twin Emperor's first death.
Well, then who's
Cthulhu
number
is
1?
considered by most WoW players as the hardest boss fight ever made.
What the fuck?
I don't personally agree with that. Cthulhu was just horribly overtuned and bugged. The first kill didn't happen until after Blizzard nerfed the fight, because it was technically impossible to do, even with
KJ,
all the
you
best
think?
gear in the game,
We'll
and if
see.
every player did this perfectly. So why is Cthulhu only the second longest unkilled boss? If he was unkillable,
Okay.
well, because there was another boss in the same instance that was also pretty much unkillable and way less sought after. The number 1 unkilled boss is Oro, who was killed 87 days after the Twin Emperor's defeat,
What?
and 1 day after Cthulhu. You see,
What?
the thing with Oro was that he was
didn't know that?
overtuned and bugged,
No.
plus an optional boss.
I had no
So
idea.
no one really bothered with it and worked on Cthulhu
What the
instead.
fuck?
His biggest
You're a
bug was his
newbie
Sand
booby,
Blast
dude.
ability,
I guess I
which hit
am.
everyone in front of him for enough damage to take about 90% of a geared caster's health, and also stunned
Wow.
everyone for a couple of seconds. He would then turn to his next highest aggro target and do it again.
Jesus
The
Christ.
idea behind this mechanic was to create a small safe zone for the raid while only 2 tanks got hit. What instead happened was he would cast Sand Blast 4 times before the first stun wore off.
Every boss
Not
is
2.
bugged.
Meaning there were
This
no
is
safe
great.
zones. Everyone got hit
Well,
and
what was
stunned if they
AQ?
didn't die from the ability damage itself. To top it off, his Quake ability was overtuned and did more damage than it should have. He stayed underground longer than he was above ground. His ads that spawned during this phase were also overtuned, and sometimes he
That's
just
so
wouldn't come
weird.
back up after going underground, spawning ads endlessly. All in all, pretty nasty fight. There's a reason people avoided it before Blizzard finally fixed it.
No, I guess so.
Oh, it's a 1v1 fight, cat. Get out of here.
I don't know about this list, man. I think heroic Alakir should have been higher. I think that OR probably, like, I think there's so many bugs that, like, they're talking about that it makes it, well, like, I mean, 4 Horsemen, yeah, I totally agree. Astromancer, like, I guess, like, I don't know, like, I guess some of these are actually really fucking hard. I never really thought about the perspective, like, man, did people just really suck dick back in vanilla?
What are you talking about? You played vanilla all of like 30 days, man. You have no place anywhere to talk about anything vanilla. You spent like 30 days in vanilla, that's it. Let other people talk about vanilla. You don't know. You are clueless.
It's gonna be
You're
hilarious
clueless.
whenever I go into those raids with my group of people that don't know anything and we clear them all in one day because they're easy and they're made for brain dead idiots with bad internet connections and shitty computers. They're joke
What is
raids
that?
with joke
What does that have
mechanics
any-
that do
that has
joke damage,
nothing to
and the
do-
only difficulty was getting 40 clowns to do the same thing at the same
See,
time.
he does this. He does this. He acts like, oh yeah, when I go clear something, it's gonna be done.
It's gonna
man.
be a
Hey, we're
joke.
gonna go. Yeah, but you are not. You're not taking into account the fact that most people back then were either on dial-up
Well, that's what
or
I'm saying.
DSL.
So this is what I mean. It's
Right.
like,
So what?
yeah,
What the
so
fuck
people,
do you know about it?
Well, that
You
was
weren't
literally what I
there.
was saying. That's
You
literally
weren't
what I
doing
was saying.
BWL, AQ, all that shit.
Yeah, neither were you. Like, what do you mean?
Yes, I was.
Yeah,
what do you
right.
mean?
Yeah, right. Like, how far did you get in vanilla?
I cleared BWL.
Oh, really?
That's it. Yeah.
No. Really?
Yes. Yeah. That's all I did.
Damn.
But that's still more than you, idiot.
No, you're right. It is. It's a lot more. But like, still, the the bosses were a joke, man. Like, I can guarantee you, like, whenever vanilla comes out, it's gonna be easy. Like, Method isn't even trying because they know how easy it's gonna be. Okay. That's how easy it is. I'm sorry. I know there's a lot of people, a lot of vanilla fanboys. It's a joke. Okay? It's just a fucking joke.
Yeah, it's a joke now. It wasn't a joke back then.
Well,
dude.
exactly, and that's what I was saying. I was saying, did people just suck back then? And you said no, and I said yes.
You know what?
What?
EverQuest has been out for like 20 years. I bet if you tried EverQuest today, you would quit after a few hours because you're so clueless.
You're
and
right.
so
I've never
used to-
tried it all because it's a shit game. It's
You
a
are so
shit game.
you
It
are
looks like
so
everything in
You
the
are so
game
fucking
looks like it
ignorant,
was
dude.
written on a piece of fucking cardboard and then photocopied into the fucking game. It looks
You're an
like
idiot.
garbage. It is the worst game I've
Yeah,
ever
it was
seen.
made 20 years ago. Of course, it looks like garbage.
It plays like
it was-
garbage too. I've seen people
No,
play it.
Yeah, have you ever played it though? Have you ever personally
No,
played it?
because
No.
that's right. I haven't
No.
eaten dog shit either, but I've seen what it looks like. I've
The
seen how
only
it
reason-
smells, and I'm like, I don't want to do
Shut
this.
the fuck up. You have no respect for trailblazers, dude. The only reason we have WoW nowadays is because of things like AQ,
Well,
man.
I really
and mods and
appreciate.
shit
No,
like that.
I do. I appreciate.
Oh,
them.
it sounds like you. It sounds like you really appreciate that shit.
Well, I'm not. It's
Holy
not. It's there's
fuck,
two
man.
different things.
You
Like
are so
this is such a high
ungrateful.
road, Andy, man.
It's
you're
not
a high
high-roaded.
You're
I'm
high
saying-
roading me so fucking
I'm saying
hard
you gotta
right now.
respect.
This is
No, I'm
embarrassing.
not. I'm saying you. That's
what
bullshit.
Am I, I'm
I'm
gonna
saying you gotta.
respect it.
Can I get a fucking word in?
Go.
I'm saying you got to respect the origins of gaming. Sometimes you just have to understand where everything comes from and respect it. And right now, you're not respecting it. You're just talking and saying, oh, shit, it was shit. It plays like shit. Nobody gives a fuck. Blah, blah, blah. You're being such a fucking baby rager, dude.
Okay, so here's the thing, right? Is that all right? Imagine you go back in time and you drive a Model T Ford. All right, it fucking sucks. The seats are bad. There's no radio. It's really hot. There's no air conditioning. There's no GPS. There's no power steering.
GPS.
There's no ABS. There's no fucking automatic windows. It's not a convertible. It's a piece of shit. Okay, I can go back and I say that car is a piece of shit, while at the same time acknowledging that if we didn't have that car, we wouldn't have a Mustang now.
Yeah, I know. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Good. All right, then we agree. Perfect. Good. Okay, let me open this up.
Top
Yeah,
10
this
creepy
is a 6-minute video. It's not a big deal.
things in WoW. To start off this list,
Number
let's
1, Goldshire on Moonguard.
take a look at Gadazon. Gadazon is in the middle of a large desert filled with things trying to kill you. Right outside the front gate of Gadazon are a couple of tracks from people who tried to head out into the desert. All in all, there are about 4 separate tracks, and if you follow any of them, they all end up the same way, with bones and the remains of whoever made the tracks.
Wow, that's actually
Now,
cool.
as a strictly Horde player, this little gem was completely new to me, but is probably common knowledge amongst Alliance
I
players.
had no idea.
Who knows? I don't really talk to 12-year-olds that often. But in the barber shop on the 2nd floor in Stormwind, there are bones of what look like 2 gnomes hidden under the floorboards. This creepy little Easter egg is a reference to Sweeney Todd, a barber who would slit the throat of his customers and hide them through the trapdoor in his floor.
What
Northeast
the
of Duskwood, there is a little place called Beggar's Haunt. Behind the broken castle, there is an unmarked grave
that's
with
the
2
NPC.
statues that look exactly like the
rare.
ones from the Dark Portal, with a rare NPC called the Unknown Soldier kneeling before the grave. In Undercity, there
Why
is
is
a
that
blindfolded human NPC named Theresa that was tortured and lobotomized to become a personal mind slave for one of the undead priest trainers.
Nice.
In the Haunted Lake,
Fuck,
there are
I'm
the
dead.
remains of a fisherman who was stabbed in the back with a sword. Inside the lake, there is a crashed plane with the remains of a small skeleton next to it, possibly belonging to either a goblin or a gnome. Thaddeus, the 4th and final boss of the Construct Quarter in Naxxramas, was built from the flesh of women and children. You can hear the echoes of women
That's
and
why he's
children
such a
used
bitch.
to make Thaddeus while in Naxxramas, and during his boss fight. Once you kill him, he thanks you, and the echoes stop.
He thanks
If
you?
you enter
Really?
the house north of Goldshire at exactly 7:40 a.m., you will see 5 children forming a pentagram. You can hear banshee screams, creepy music, and the Cthulhu sound file saying,
You will die.
At the entrance to
What the
Undercity, there are
fuck?
3 different hidden ghost sounds you can hear if you turn down your game's sounds and music and turn up your ambient noise to max. The first is the ringing of the broken bell at the entrance. Second, you can hear the sound of a cheering crowd as you enter the throne room. There are also rose petals on the floor. And lastly, you can hear the conversation Arthas had with his father right before he killed him, as well as see the blood on the floor from where his crown fell.
Holy shit. That's actually fucking cool.
The crypts next to Karazhan were supposed to be part of Karazhan, but was never
Wow.
actually implemented for some reason. While getting
Yeah, I had
into
no
the
idea.
crypts nowadays is almost impossible, what is inside the crypts is a lot of creepy shit.
Oh. Oh. Yeah, this is one of the creepiest fucking things in the game. Like, by a fucking mile.
Now, the number 1 thing on this list is probably not the creepiest thing out of all the other stuff I listed, but I found it quite disturbing. In the Hillspread foothills, there is a place called the Sludge Fields.
The
The
Auschwitz of
Sludge Fields used to
Azeroth?
be a farm that was overtaken by the undead during the
What
Cataclysm.
the fuck?
In a small section of the fields, there is a literal field of humans buried neck deep with ghouls jumping around bashing their heads in. The details of what happened there are laid out by the journal of Clerk Horace Whitesteed, a prisoner of war held at the camp.
Day 20. The Hillsbrad fields are no more. Those that did not flee were captured. The Forsaken have declared us as prisoners of war. We are to be laborers at their new plantation.
Ooh.
Day 25. They incinerated our farms and made us watch. Construction begins tomorrow. Day 40. Construction of the plantations is nearly complete. This place resembles no farm or plantation I've ever seen.
I see that.
Day 45. We've started laboring in the sludge fields. They grow poisonous mushrooms in fetid water and muck. Day 50. I hear screams coming from the Warden's manor. People are starting to disappear. Day 52. I overheard that some guards talking about the farmers, Ray Getz and Kalaba. Something terrible has happened to them. Of this, I'm
You have
certain.
to kill them, don't you?
Day
Or
60.
not?
Those of us that remain are scared for our lives. Some of the farmers claim to have seen ghouls running amok at night. Day 61.
I love
A
this
strange
shit.
turn of events today. A master apothecary came from Torn Mill. From what little information I've been able to gather, he is here to supervise the operations. Lydon is his name. Day 62. Master Apothecary Lydon was dragged away by Stillwater's guards. He was yelling and screaming that the Dark Lady would have Stillwater's head for this. What is he talking about, I wonder?
I wonder.
Day 63. I saw them taking
Morally
away
gray, by the
Burnside
way.
and Vertigan last night. I can only assume that I'm next.
In addition to the human seeds,
Sure
there are
was.
also hanging corpses of the same model as the ones used in the Karazhan crypt. There's also a quest associated with the Seed People called Do the Right Thing. We have come upon a horrific scene. Someone or something has buried all the humans up to their necks in a manner consistent with planting. The ghouls, which are seemingly tending the fields of human seedlings, periodically jump to the nearest human and devour its head. You can end this right here and now. Take this shovel and save the humans. Do the right thing. Emphasis on the saved part. For this quest, you can actually choose whether or not to bash their heads in or remove the trap humans from the dirt. For added efficiency, you can save the humans and then immediately bash their heads in too to get 2 credits for saving the human and finish up the quest that much faster.
We're gonna do that next time. Wow. I had no idea. Oh, actually, let's watch this one. I really like this one a lot. Why Paladins did such low damage.
Play a Red Paladin in Vanilla WoW, and if you're not fighting...
Yeah, let's watch this one.
You only have 1 damaging ability, until the target goes below 20% health anyway, in which case you'll gain access to a 2nd damage.
Hammer of Wrath.
The way Red Paladins do most of their damage is through their seal system, which buffs their auto attacks and does different things depending if you consume it with your judgment ability, which is their only damaging move, which requires you to have a seal active in order for it to work. So basically, a Red Paladin's DPS revolves around activating a seal, using judgment to consume that seal to do its unique effect, and then reapplying another seal to buff your auto attack damage while you wait for judgment to come off cooldown. And that's basically how Red Paladins played. They just waited around for judgment to come off cooldown, as they couldn't really do anything else damage-wise, unless they also wanted to use their AoE ability on single target, or if they were fighting undead, in which case they gain access to 2 new abilities called Exorcism and Holy Wrath. Now, this may surprise you to hear, but this version of the Ret Paladin wasn't added to the game until 2 weeks before the game went live. So basically, completely untested and added in at the last second. Because during the beta, Red Paladins had a little bit more to do than just activate a seal and use judgment. Red Paladins had 2 more damaging abilities called Crusader Strike and Holy Strike. Holy Strike was basically the Paladin version of the warrior ability Heroic Strike, where it would turn your next weapon swing into a harder hitting attack. But Holy Strike turned all that damage into pure holy damage, which meant it bypassed armor and was actually...
So this is basically, this video is pretty much admitting that Red Paladins had abilities, but they were all removed. And this is kind of what everybody has assumed. But now that this video is here, we all just know that it's going to happen.
That's really good. And Crusader Strike is an ability Paladins have in the live version of the game, and they basically have had the ability ever since it was given back to them at the beginning of the Burning Crusade. And what Crusader Strike did in WoW's beta was it would do instant damage and then put a debuff on the target, which would increase the holy damage they took in seconds. And this debuff would stack up to 5 times. And Crusader Strike did not have a cooldown. So Paladins actually had a simple damage,
2.
as well as a decent holy damage ability on a 10-second cooldown with Holy Strike, which would hit harder the more stacks of Crusader Strike you had up on the target. And this version of the Paladin in the beta was actually pretty good, and did decent damage, unlike how a baseline Red Paladin played in Classic WoW, where they were one of the low, as well as a decent holy damage ability on a 10-second cooldown with Holy Strike, which would hit harder the more stacks of Crusader Strike you had up on the target. And this version of the Paladin in the beta was actually pretty good.
Actually pretty good.
Damage, unlike how a baseline Red Paladin played in Classic WoW, where they were one of the lowest DPS classes in the game. So, why did Blizzard remove Crusader Strike and Holy Strike, and then basically give them nothing to replace their only damaging abilities?
Too bad.
Well, there are some theories and rumors about this, and I plan on going over both of them. First up, mechanically speaking, these two abilities were removed from the game because they just made the Paladin go incredibly quickly. Both Crusader Strike and Holy Strike cost mana to use.
Yep.
And caster classes in vanilla WoW had to worry about their mana.
Yeah, they never got any
So
mana
they
back.
had to
That's
be
a good
careful
point.
about which abilities they could spam before running out of mana. And while Paladins did good damage with these two abilities,
Yep.
having a spammable Crusader Strike caused them to run out of mana a little bit too quickly, and the vanilla WoW class design was absolutely not about making the mana cost lower, as there were a couple of other classes in the game who were unviable because they also had so much mana problems. So, many people theorize the reason they converted Ret Paladins into the auto-attack version they got for vanilla WoW was a band-aid way of solving the mana issue that Crusader Strike brought up. If the Paladin only needs to use one ability every 8 seconds,
What are
in
you
order to do damage,
doing?
then they don't have to worry about mana as much.
Are you
for their
walking your
defense.
head down
Regardless of the
here?
fact that this promoted a
Oh,
style
I'm
of
gonna
gameplay
beat
which
you. You
wasn't
break
as
another
fun
tooth,
as
I'm
what
gonna
Crusader
beat you.
Strike and Holy Strike might have brought about.
I don't agree with that.
Hmm?
I actually think that the Ret Paladin vanilla gameplay was really good. The thing is, it just matters like what do you really what is valuable to you? Because to me personally, what I thought was awesome was being able to just sit there and do nothing. So I sit there, I do nothing, and you're just auto-attacking the whole time, and that gives you time to look at the boss's loot, see what's going to drop, see what you're going to be able to roll on, go on to Twitter, look at Twitter, tweet out, man, I'm excited to raid today, this is awesome. You know, you're watching porn, and the only thing you really need to do is refresh one button. And the best part about a Ret Paladin, right, is at the very, same as an Arms Warrior back in Burning Crusade, the expectations were so low, you actually didn't even need to be good at your class. You could literally not even play. And as long as you were there, people, it's like, what really is the difference between 300 and 350 DPS? I mean, whenever you really break it down, what is the difference between those two things? No one. No one cares. It doesn't really matter.
And there was also the
50 DPS,
debuff
right.
limit. Vanilla WoW only had an 8 debuff slot limit, which was later increased to 16, which is what we have at the start of Classic WoW. And if the Paladin's main damaging ability, Crusader Strike, required them to take up one of these debuff slots, then Paladins wouldn't be able to use their main damaging ability in raids anyway, and they'd be stuck with only Holy Strike every 10 seconds. Because in beta, when Paladins had both Crusader Strike and Holy Strike, Judgment and Seals didn't really exist in the way they did in Vanilla WoW. Beta Judgment was literally just Holy Wrath.
That's
where it
all
was an
Paladin
AoE that
judgments, by
only
the way.
worked
Beta
deaths.
judgments.
And when they changed the Paladin class to how it eventually worked in Vanilla WoW,
Yep.
they changed Judgment into the 8-second cooldown ability, which consumed Seals in order to do damage. And then they just added in Holy Wrath, which had Judgment's old effect. And the Seal system was completely added to the game along with this Judgment change, where the Seal system in Vanilla WoW requires you to activate a short-term buff on yourself,
Yep.
which is usually about 30 seconds,
Yep.
and then you consume that 30-second buff with your Judgment in order to do damage, and other various effects. And while that 30-second buff is on you, it gives you an auto-attack buff, which does various things depending on which seal you're using. And the things in Beta WoW, which were called seals, were just changed into the blessings, which is kind of confusing to explain in this video, but to make it as simple as possible, they completely created the seal mechanic from scratch at the start of Vanilla WoW, and then for some reason gave it a naming convention after another set of abilities that Paladins already had, that functions nothing like how the seal mechanic works. Anyways, since they didn't have the seal and judgment mechanic alongside Crusader Strike and Holy Strike, they never really got to test how that would function for the class, allowing them to have 3 damaging abilities that they would then use regularly along with the auto attack buff.
It wasn't really until Wrath that Ret Paladins were good. In Burning Crusade, they were decent, but they were still kind of towards like the bottom middle of the pack. And they gave buffs though, which made Ret Paladins good. And yeah, in Wrath, that's whenever they were actually really good. I remember in fucking in ICC, they were insane. Blood Elf Rets were good. They were not good compared to other classes. Like they were not good as Fury Warrior, as a Shadow Bolt Warlock, or a Hunter. Like, yes, of course that there were other classes that Rets did outperform, like Arms Warriors, yes, but Rets were nowhere near the top. They were not even remotely close, especially compared to some of the high performers like Rogues. Like, no, they were nowhere close.
From seals. Considering that system would still have the mana problems and the debuff slot limit problem, I can see why they decided to simplify things for themselves and just give them the auto attack thing instead, so that paladins could focus on being buff bots. You see, paladin buffs were really good, but they only lasted for 5 minutes, and you can only place one on a person at a time. So having a paladin in your raid meant everyone else in your raid could do more damage and healing, but that also meant the paladins spent most of their global cooldowns just buffing everyone else, making them one of the only pure support classes to exist in the game, which could be another big reason why they were changed to focus on auto attacks instead of having an active rotation with Crusader Strike, because they wanted the paladin to use those
focusing on auto attacks
instead of using them.
How do you focus on auto attacks?
Of course, the seal mechanic wasn't a huge success either, as it was all but removed after Vanilla WoW, since while it did have a few fans, it wasn't very good, and I'm sure everyone probably would have liked it more if it just did a little bit more damage, or, you know, was a little bit more involved than having to press 2 buttons every 8 seconds.
Yeah, maybe.
So, if you go back and watch any beta footage of World of Warcraft that has paladins in it, you can actually see Crusader Strike on the debuff bar of the video I'm showing right now.
Oh, wow.
As a shaman is going out and fighting a paladin in the open world.
Holy shit.
And you can see the Crusader Strike debuff on him as he's killing the higher level paladin.
That's crazy.
But Vanilla WoW was already taking a long time to come out. It was in development for 5 years.
Holy shit.
So they started just rushing things towards the end, but it's kind of a wonder why they decided to make such a drastic change to the Paladin class 2 weeks before the game launched, which kind of segues into this next section of the video. Now, outside of the mechanical reasons that people theorize, these aren't, confirmed in any way, about why they removed Crusader Strike and Holy Strike, there's also the rumors of 2 game developers joining around the same time the seal system was added. 2 famous EverQuest players named Furor and Tiggle joined the WoW development team at around the time Paladins
so
got
they
this
ruined
drastic
Ret Paladins
change to
right
their damage
there.
and rotation. And the change to the
They
Paladin
actually just
class
ruined
was
them.
so last second that even in the official Vanilla WoW guide, which was sold in stores, they featured the Paladin old class systems, including Crusader Strike, Holy Strike, and calling their blessings seals.
Wait a second. Let me see. Where's my book? Do I have my book anywhere? I want to see if it's in my book. Where the hell is it? Fuck, man. I don't even know what the hell is going on here. Yeah, shit, I don't see one. Fuck, I'll have to look around, and like maybe that's the case with mine. But yeah, I don't know. I don't see it.
And you see, these 2 players were infamous for absolutely hating hybrid classes.
So Jeff
to the point
ruined
where
it.
they would stage protests in game whenever they found out a hybrid class was doing anything except being a buff bot.
So Tiggle, that's Jeff, okay? Tiggle referred to Paladins as very much a support class. He is quoted as saying, "When I'm playing a shaman, I hate Paladins." See that? No current or former CM ever played Paladin at level 60. The highest level Paladin of a community manager was 51. That makes sense. Furrow responded by pre-release Paladin questions on the Fires of Haven guild forum by becoming enraged and verbally abusive. Tiggle expressed disdain for hybrid classes in some pre-release interviews. Paladins were not mentioned explicitly, but when mentioned why the Death Knight Necromancer classes were scrapped, he replied that Blizzard wanted to keep hybrids at a minimum. So they fucking hate him. They fucking hate him.
Or something like that. They just really didn't like the fact that a hybrid class could do as much damage as a pure DPS class, and they were well known for wanting hybrid classes to basically be terrible as a tax for being able to do a whole bunch of different things, which would make sense why Paladins lost their fun rotation as soon as they joined and were given the infamous seal system for Vanilla WoW. Although I'd call these just rumors instead of what actually happened, because there isn't confirmation this is why it happened. And in fact, Ghostcrawler is largely credited with changing paladins to how they were in Vanilla WoW. And Ghostcrawler is also the person who wanted hybrid classes to perform just as well as pure DPS classes.
That's never gonna work.
So what probably
That never
happened
would work.
was Ghostcrawler just wanted to try out this change with the paladins and see how it worked. Saw that it failed in Vanilla WoW, and then changed his philosophy going forward to try to push all classes to basically being equal. So, all that being said, there's not too much credit to the Furrer or Tiggle changing Vanilla WoW paladins into a garbage spec.
So it's no
Although this
longer a
wouldn't be a video
conspiracy.
about beta ret paladins without mentioning this very famous rumor.
Okay.
I just couldn't find any confirmation for any of these rumors besides lots of speculations on forums and stuff.
Of course.
Which is usually the case for very famous WoW rumors. So, there you have it. The reason paladins
Nobody
only
actually
had
knows what
one
the fuck is
damaging
going
ability
on. That's basically
was
what's
because
going
it was
on.
given to them at the last second without any kind of testing like all the other classes got, as well as a whole bunch of rumors and theories as to why they made this decision in the first place. After Vanilla WoW, Blizzard changed paladins to no longer be buff bots. They allowed them to actually tank, and gave them competitive DPS. Arguably, it was much better than it was in Vanilla WoW though. In this video, we'll go over 10
just give me
weapons
1
that are
second.
weird,
Let me go ahead and
the
try to
fact
load
that they
back
did
in again,
something
okay?
Unique,
135.
or were uniquely bad. And at number 10, we have the
Okay.
Dark Iron Pulverizer.
Doesn't it
This is a
stun for
two-handed
8
mace
seconds?
that has an amazing effect, where it has a random chance on hit to stun the target for 8 seconds.
Should I use that? Like, imagine me stunning somebody for 8 fucking seconds. Like, just like one fucking boom. Just stun forever. I don't know. I'd love to see that, okay? We'll watch the Hobbs video after this one, okay, guys?
That
Assuming
is
servers
longer
are
than
still
any
not up.
other stun that a player character can use.
Nobody would ever do that. What do you mean?
Carefully.
All right, here we go. You overgear it so much? Yeah, I mean, we're just going to blow it the fuck out. I mean, let's be real. Okay. Ooh. Whoa.
Loot.
That's what
Pixels.
matters.
Upgrades. Looks. It's at the
Mainly
forefront
looks.
of any RPG in history. Everyone wants it. No one has
Ooh,
enough.
health is odd loot.
And people will lie, cheat, betray, and steal to get it.
No, man.
So naturally,
Nobody
it
would
has
ever
to be
do that.
treated
What do you
very
mean?
Carefully.
Who
And
would
in the
do
case
that?
Of MMOs, even more so.
Come on,
since we're now
man.
in direct competition with other people.
That's disgusting.
It varies between games. In current, it's not that big of a deal because
Yeah.
of personal loot. You run a raid, and you get loot, or you don't.
And usually you don't. And it sucks.
And you have nothing but luck to blame.
Yep.
However,
And Blizzard.
Classic, it's more traditional. You kill a boss, it drops loot, and you dish it out.
Yep.
Don't be fooled by
Dish
this
out the
veil of
DKP.
simplicity, though. Behind this simple idea lies anger, jealousy, and betrayal. Something that players were not prepared for.
That's
with
the
the
best part of
release
it, man.
Was the loot and raiding. And in
Yeah,
the
it's
game's
the best
short
part.
7-month lifespan, many guilds have already fallen under the yoke of loot drama. And in this video, I wanted to talk about the 3 big ones and their strengths and weaknesses for any aspiring guild leaders out there, or even those of you just looking for a guild.
Anarchy.
Anarchy, a state of disorder due to the absence or non-recognition of authority. Lady
Synonyms.
Luck reigns supreme
Olympus.
with the first on our list, and that's open roll.
Okay.
Well, not fully open. You'd have to be pretty naive to have open loot to 40 people and just trust everyone not to take whatever they wanted.
Yeah, I know. Oh, dude. This fucking video, dude.
No, it's more like the wrath drops, so all tanks roll on it, excluding DPS warriors, until all of the tanks already have it.
Yeah, that's right. That's why I
Pros
roll
would
tank.
be there are no favorites nor discrimination.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that's standing between you and the item is your own luck. It's fair, right? Well,
No.
yes, in that aspect it is.
Yeah,
What
right.
about this situation? You have a tank who's online every day, tanks dungeons for guildmates, even if he doesn't need them. He brings consumables, PvPs.
This is me.
He's always online in Discord.
No, it's not me.
This is a valuable guild member who gets along with most people.
You should give him all the loot.
And you have the other tank, whose playtime starts and ends with raid. And you question if there's some sort of weird government experiment, because they've never spoken a single word in voice chat.
Okay.
This person wins the Helmet of Wrath, and you don't see him for 6.5 days, and your active tank is still using this piece of crap.
Look.
Anything is variable. You could apply bonuses to rolls, depending on activity or the ability to
Okay.
speak. But
Yeah.
how much? What's fair and what isn't?
Right, of course.
Is it to all rolls? This brings in micromanagement
I
and
hate that.
authority to a loot system that people flock to.
I've always hated giving people plus X onto a roll. I think that's the worst system, because the moment that somebody wins the roll, but then somebody else actually wins the roll, that's the moment that you have somebody who is 275% mad. And their friend that's talking to them in that other guild, they're like, hey, what's up, man? So when do you guys raid again? What is really going on over there?
Because they don't like micromanagement and authority
Yeah, it's
in their
fucking
loot
annoying.
system. So, let's bring some order to all of this, shall we?
Okay.
We talked about adding bonuses to those who are more active within the guild.
Yeah.
Maybe the more stuff they do, they get points. You get points for raids, of course. but
DKP.
Maybe also for attending guild events, PvPing, or whatever.
I don't think you should do that.
Well, it's not a very creative idea, because it's existed for around 20 years.
Yeah, I've never been a
First
fan of
brought
this.
about in EverQuest, the DKP system was one of the ways to distribute loot
This
in
is
the original
not-
classic.
No.
It was hard to find a guild that didn't.
See, you knew this is an actual classic guild because they have 4 druids in the same raid and a fucking moonkin. So this is not, it's the vanilla raid, not classic. If this was a classic raid, that would be in the back, the 20 Fury Warriors, and then in front of that, the 30 druids. That's pretty much it. 6 druids? Yeah, I forgot moonkins were actual druids. Usually they're just a waste of space. But anyway, I think DKP is fucking stupid. Like, the only good way to do loot is through either loot council or a modified loot council system. Like, everything else besides that is a bad way of doing it, in my opinion. I think loot council is the best way of distributing loot in a group that has people that trust each other and decisions are made fairly, obviously.
use it, in fact. Basically, each boss in each raid gives you a certain amount of points. You kill
Yep.
Lucifron, and you and everyone else present gets 2 points.
Mhm.
And you kill Nefarian, and you and everyone else present gets 6 points. This is the bare minimum the system is set up for.
We used to have people that
It
like
varies
contribute
guild by
shit for
guild.
the guild bank.
Some give points for PvP.
That's dumb.
And some for even donating materials or gold.
We used
to
to
a
have
guild
that in
bank.
my old guild.
A derivation that's gaining in popularity is EPGP, where instead of DKP,
We used to have that too.
P or effort points.
In
And
Indestructible,
a
we had
second
this.
currency is added called gear points, which goes up as you get gear. And loot
It's like who has the
priority is
best
decided
ratio
on
gets
a
it
quotient
first.
of these two numbers. A more
I
detailed
hated
version
this
of
shit,
DKP,
dude.
essentially. But back to
It
the
was
base
so
DKP
bad,
system
dude.
here. You then spend these points on the actual items.
Mhm.
There are a couple of different ways in doing this as well. One is an
Bidding.
auction style, where you choose how many points you spend. So player A bids 5 points on an item, then player B chimes in with 10, and so on and so forth until the highest bidder wins. And you also have the second variant, where items have a set point value, and the person with the highest point total wins it, and then gets that price deducted from their total.
What the fuck? I've never heard
So
of that.
going back to that helmet
Yeah,
of
I've never
Wrath
heard of people
scenario,
doing that.
This time it would go to the active tank, assuming that he has the most points.
Yeah, that actually, this system sounds great.
The other tank would eventually
He'd eventually get it, but who cares about him? So, I've never liked DKP because it encourages behaviors that I think are counterproductive to progression. So, number one is it encourages people not to bid on upgrades immediately and to instead wait for their biggest upgrade and then only bid their DKP on that specific upgrade. And so it creates a really weird system where people are not taking things that they should be taking, but they're only taking things that they can take for a very, very low total while still maintaining all of their items and all their DKP in order to buy out, Warglaives, in order to buy out, Sulfuras or something like that. And then on top of that, it encourages toxic behavior because you have people that, this is what I would do, is like, I got together with the other warriors in the guild and I'm like, okay, bro. So I want the belt, you get the boots. You go 5 on the boots, I I don't bid. I go 5 in a belt. You don't bid. And then we're good. And so it encourages that toxic behavior on top of that, which is not good for the guild. And then on top of that, collusion. Well, of course, collusion. And then on top of that, you have bidding people up just to lower their DKP. So, for example, if you know somebody really, really needs a pair of boots, right? They're still using fucking Saffron's boots or something like that. The blue ones, Saffron scale boots, and Boots of Might drop or Boots of Wrath drop, and they need them, and you bid them up knowing that you don't really need them, but you're bidding them up in order to make them spend more of their DKP, so whenever the Drake Fang Talisman drops later on, then they don't have enough DKP to compete against you, and then you get the item that you want because you bid them up on the item that you don't even want in the first place. Okay, like, I was the master at scamming people with DKP. Like, I did this for years.
Eventually get his, of course, but as appropriate to his
Silent
activity
bits
within the
fix it?
guild, it would
Yeah,
be
they
much
do.
later.
But
The
you can
pro
still
of this
inspect people,
method
like, you
is that
know.
you get what you put in. If you're an active member, you're thusly rewarded with more gear more quickly, and it'll get more use since you don't log out for 6 days immediately after raid. There are cons though. Like I said, it was hard to find a guild back then that didn't.
It's also
use
bad
it.
for new players
But
coming
today,
in.
It's not as prolific.
Because they don't have any
But
DKP.
why is this?
EPGP is better in
First
that way.
is with the variant A, where people can enter a bidding war. It's extremely susceptible to collusion. Let's say you have 3
No.
tanks. Tanks A and B are real good friends, but they hate Tank C.
Wait,
So,
what?
Tank B
Who would
makes
do
an
that?
agreement with A that if Tank C doesn't
No,
bid, just bid
no,
1
dude.
point and I'll pass it to you.
No, dude.
Otherwise, let's bid up that C a-hole.
Fuck them.
So this allows tanks A and B to stay at the
Get all
top
the gear.
indefinitely because they get items for 1
Yeah.
point. And whenever C wants something, they
Fuck
bid
'em.
him or her up to expensive prices.
Yep.
And even the set point system has issues. I can relate to this one perfectly, as it happened in my guild back in 2005.
Yep.
We
This is
had
really
2
fun.
rogues, A and B.
I used to love
A
doing
was a
this.
newish rogue, but a nice dude who tried hard. We were in AQ40.
A nice
and
dude.
The rogues in our guild were always pretty tight-knit when it came to gear, and we would sort of convene and try to get the biggest
Ooh.
upgrades possible for the lower geared rogues for the betterment of the guild.
Yeah. That was
Everyone
what
was
makes sense.
like-minded and on the same page here, except
Except-
for Rogue B,
Yep.
who happened to be our raid leader, in fact.
Hey, how
The
convenient.
item in this particular example was the ancient Kiraji Ripper. Rogue
Yeah?
B we referred to as the weapon collector, because that's what he did. He liked to collect weapons, even if he didn't use them. Something that,
That rogue's name? Esfon. I'm just kidding. Is there any weapon that Esfon doesn't have? Like, and I'll be honest, like, I'm jealous. It's not like I'm mad about it. I'm fucking jealous. He has both legendaries, and I don't have a single fucking one, man. This is insane.
DKP system we had allowed. For example, he'd have chromatically tempered sword,
Yeah.
and he'd outbid someone on brutality blade,
What?
then throw it in his bank, and let it collect dust, because he liked to look at it, I guess.
What a fucking idiot.
Like I said, Rogue A was fairly new to the guild, and he was coming in with
Oh my
Ren
God.
set or some pre-rate blue.
Dow
And
Rins?
he was lower in DKP, but since he always tried, and he was a cool dude in general,
Oh my
the rogues
God.
agreed to pass on the sword because it was a huge upgrade for him naturally.
Oh my
So
fucking
Rogue
God.
B at the time had the chromatically tempered sword, I'm fairly sure.
Yeah?
So also an upgrade for him, but minor in comparison. And when the sword dropped, he bid on it, locking Rogue A out, and then another rogue in turn outbid him. And he got pissed, G-quit, and the rest is history. The whole thing was pretty petty, but that's loot in
Of
a
course it
nutshell in
is.
Classic. It's all petty. There is also a pay-to-win aspect if you give
Yeah.
out points for donating gold or consumables.
I don't like this.
It depends on the guild. Some set
Yeah.
a limit to it, but still,
That-
some people
yeah,
can take
every
issue with
guild
this.
has a limit to it
It's
almost
also
that
a
I know of.
logistical nightmare. I was good friends with the guy who did the DKP for a guild, and he would be up at night trying to settle disputes. Like, I was here for the first 2 bosses.
Yeah.
Oh, it's only
We
8:48
had the
when we
same
calm
issues
down.
until we had the add-ons.
Oh, this guy was AFK for this fight, so you should deduct points.
It's really stupid.
So, the point system is exploitable, and it does have flaws.
Oh, since you're in my
Last
check,
group of
bring me a
players
beer.
here, though, just say F it. No rolling, no points. We decide where the loot goes. I'm of course talking about loot council here, where a group
This
of
is the
people,
superior
typically
way,
officers,
right here.
get together
This is how it's
and
done.
vote on who gets what. The pros and
Yep.
cons in this should be pretty self-explanatory. If run well, the loot is handed out in such a way that it benefits the guild the
Mhm.
most. And if run poorly, corruption and personal grudges dictate who gets what.
That's very
We
true.
all know the story of the loot council, whose itinerary is to gear themselves first, and then the rest of the rabble later on.
I can't believe anybody...
It's a hard thing to describe because it's so subjective. Something that seems grossly unfair from the outside may be perfectly reasonable on the inside,
Yeah.
and vice versa. It really just depends if you have honest people truly making the best decision for what's good for the guild.
I think that's really what it matters. What matters, right? Is if you have everybody in the group is okay and on the same page with how the loot decisions are being made, then everything's okay. To me personally, I have never I like memeing about this, but as a loot master, and whenever I had loot council in my guild, we had a number of ways that we would prevent collusion. Right? It was like you couldn't comment on items that you rolled on. We invited a new person every single week to listen in on our decision-making process for them to know why we were making decisions. And that rotated every single week. So there were a number of ways that we did this in order to ease people's minds whenever we went over and we used this system. We obviously had a few complaints about it over the years, but overall, I think we had a really, really positive system.
And when you bring in human nature into the equation,
Yeah.
anything can happen.
People just get
I think
pissed.
the one concrete thing you can say is that it's the most susceptible to drama.
Yep.
Free-for-all can be frustrating,
sure is.
but ultimately, it's your role against theirs. DKP can be manipulated, but it's inevitable that you'll get something. With loot council,
maybe.
it's possible you'll get nothing for 2 months. You don't get loot because you don't perform well.
Yeah.
And you don't perform well because you don't get loot.
I
Plus,
I feel like a guild that can't figure that out, like what the difference is between somebody performing well for their gear and somebody performing well, period, is just a bad guild. Like, if your guild is putting you up against somebody in full tier 2 and you're like a mage or a rogue or something and you're in pre-raid bis and you're not getting any loot because that person's out damaging you, it's like, why are you in that guild? Right? I get that, like, yeah, they cleared it more and everything like that, but if that's the only decision-making process that they use, then it's a mistake. The fact is that the way that we do things is that we do, like, every loot council does to some degree, like, focus on seniority because it matters. But at the same time, while seniority does matter, it also matters a lot if you show up, if you have a good attitude, if you're in the raid all the time, if you're playing in the guild regularly, and if you're a positive force in the guild. So, and if you're playing well in general. So there's a lot of factors to it. But like in my guild, I think we have a 2 or 3 week trial period, and then pretty much anybody can nominate a piece of gear with like a soft reserve system that we have.
I think that the idea of someone else dictating what you deserve and what you don't deserve just rubs people the wrong way.
Yeah.
It's like, if you're a good boy, you get a treat. If you ask me,
That's, yeah, because if you're a good boy, you do good damage. Like, that's the way it should be. Like, I know that you guys are trying to, like, fucking meme on this, but it's actually the best way to do it, because no other system rewards performance. Like, there's no system that rewards performance besides DKP. In Classic, it doesn't matter. Unless, like, you're a tank and you're missing taunts or something like that, which I never do, by the way. But unless you're a tank that's missing taunts, like, it doesn't really matter how well you perform. Like, it's really hard to wipe on the bosses. But other than that, like, yeah, back then, whenever it was really hard, it was a completely different system.
they all have their ups and downs. I think in general,
Console
for
rewards
me,
performance? Yeah, I know.
DKP
That's
is
what I was
the most
saying. Sorry
appealing.
if I said it wrong.
The thing I like about DKP is that eventually you're going to get something. Eventually, no matter what, you're rewarded for the amount of time that you put in.
I don't like that.
The downside of loot council, I think, is that oftentimes it's disproportionate. Not always, but oftentimes there's just 1 or 2 people of a class who get fully decked out before others.
Yeah, the main
I'm not talking about what's fair here and what isn't. What I'm talking about, and I see it all the time, is that the faster a player is geared out, the more likely they are to quit. Class.
Don't tell them my secrets, Mad Season. Do not tell them my secrets. Don't tell them that. The last piece of gear I get is my last raid. I'm fucking done.
Sick is a simple game. For endgame,
Yep.
we have raiding and PvP, with loot of course serving as the carrot on a stick. If you remove the carrot on a stick by fully gearing out one player, you remove their main reason to play. Yes,
Yeah.
ideally, you gear out the players who raid more for the sake of raiding, and just hang out
It's a
with friends and
delicate
helping the
balance.
guild. But humans are not infallible. The faster you gear someone out, the more likely that person will end up quitting because they have less reason to show up. I feel like loot console guilds have a harder fight against attrition way more than DKP or rolling guilds. Because they get in the cycle of feeding one person all this loot, and then removing a big reason for them to
for
play.
the memories.
They quit, then go to the next.
The pumper wanted out, so I figured I'd go out there.
Person.
Boom.
And rinse and repeat. It's putting all of your eggs into one basket, which is really
Ooh, a
risky.
new fireball
is.
and a new
It's
pyroblast.
Very true. What Matt Susan's saying. It is
Fuck
extremely
yeah.
risky. Like there are a number of times where like you gear out like a main tank or something like that. Like this used to be very common in vanilla, because of like 4 horsemen and guilds needing more main tanks. But you also had the same thing in DKP, where someone who is looking to quit the guild would just dump all of their DKP into an item, go down to 0, and then quit the guild after they zeroed out their DKP. So the thing is with Loot Council is that's again part of the expertise that comes into Loot Council is knowing who to gear out and why to gear them out. It sucks, but it's happened to a lot of guilds. It's happened to my guild. I remember there was this girl that we geared the fuck out of her in Throne of Thunder. We gave her all the gear, and she's not really that good, but she's the best one we had. And then she left the fucking guild. I was pissed, man. I was so fucking pissed. Simp? No, well.
Well, the biggest advantage they have is that loot in general is spread around more. Therefore, you have an easier time keeping an active roster.
Okay, it would be
think that you
quicker
should
for me
loot
to take
council
the
your main
blow.
tank.
These two systems are the most appealing, and to those who care more about progression, they will go down the more risky loot council route.
Exactly.
It can be done well. I'm actually in a loot council guild as I make this video, and I haven't had any troubles personally.
There you go.
The bottom line is that there's no system where everyone will be happy.
No.
Loot really does make people crazy in this game.
Alright, I should be able to clear those mobs a lot quicker now,
somehow.
I would think.
That item should be theirs. This is Bullcorn. I'm joining this other guild where the exact same thing will happen.
Yep. Because
Hopefully
now
this
they're at the
video
bottom of the
didn't give
list
off
again.
The impression that the leadership is always in the wrong. The members can be just as bad, if not worse, trust me. I think people vastly underestimated personal loot and how it virtually eliminated all of this drama. The items do mean
It does create drama. Personal loot creates drama. That is true, but like for the most part, he's right. It does get rid of a lot of it. I mean, like there are some people, dude, they spurg the fuck out over loot. Like I know, like people get mad. Think about it like this: if you want an example of what Mad Susan's talking about, people get mad about loot decisions that I make in my guild, and they're not even on the same server as me. They're mad. They're like, fuck this, dude. I can't believe this, dude. You're gonna give that to him? Wow, dude. I used to respect you, bro. Fuck you, man. Fuck you.
more in Classic due to competition. I mean, I just like to bring up that I remembered the specific item from 15 years ago
That's a good
that our
point.
guild had drama over, and I can't even remember what I had for breakfast yesterday. If that doesn't tell you how much more important loot is, I don't know what will, but it's definitely at a cost. If it were me, I would just go with the bouquet method. At weddings, everyone turns
City.
around and throws a bouquet over her head, and whoever catches it is destined for love. I would do that with each piece of loot, and watch people tear each other apart, and see who can come out with.
Okay, this is what I want right here.
So, the best you can do as a guild leader is to try your best to be fair with whatever system you.
Hardest grinds in WoW. You know what number 1 is? The Goldshire Inn on Moonguard.
Hey guys, what's up? Mad Season here, back with another video for you. A criticism you hear about Legion quite often is that it's very grindy.
That's very
with
true.
Titan forging, artifact power, and legendaries to name just a few. Well, in response, I thought...
You don't know what you have till it's gone, don't you, boys? I mean, wasn't that beautiful? I mean, this... It's better than the neck. I'll say that for sure. It's a lot better than the fucking neck.
Well, in response, I thought it would make for a fun series to take a look at the hardest grinds throughout the game's history. Mainly reputation, but also some more unconventional stuff thrown in there as well.
Okay.
And before we begin here, when I say hardest, I really mean the most time consuming for the most part. A lot of the grinds in the game aren't really hard in the sense of killing tough enemies, but rather they're hard in the sense that they're hard to complete because they take so long. As many of you may have guessed, I think the most appropriate place to start are the reputations tied to the Insane title. For this one, you originally had to raise your reputation to Exalted with Southern factions and another one to Honored. For the most part, I'll try to stick to the pre-nerf.
Just a second here. My 3 donos didn't get the message written, and wanted to ask if you knew if there's a Demon Hunter on the original box of WoW. Yeah, I knew that, man. I have the original box of WoW. Thank you.
Stuff, since this is a video about the hardest grinds after all. A lot of this has been made easier over time, so note that this isn't a guide by any means. If that's what you're looking for, you're in the wrong place. There might be some useful bits of information here and there, but like I said, I'll be talking about the pre-nerfed state a lot, so a lot of this information will be out of date from the current game.
It really did.
So, the original achievement had Booty Bay, Gadget Zen, Everlook, Ratchet, Ravenholt, the Dark Moon Fair, and the Chandrilar factions at Exalted, and the Bloodsill Buccaneers at Honored. So we got 8 total to start off episode 1. The Chandrilar was removed with the Cataclysm expansion, so let's start with that. This is the group of Night Elves that can be found inside of the library of the Dire Maul dungeon, the same place where you got the Quilsarar quest. To raise their reputation to Exalted, the best method was to get these items called Librams. You got these as...
We've been having something happen in my chat recently, and this is something that actually is very annoying to me. Whenever somebody starts posting for me to do something, everybody else in the chat starts posting for me to do that.
Is it letting you make a character?
In order to try to get me to do this thing. From now on, mods, if there's like a tide of people all telling me to do something or look at something, just time all of them out. It's extremely annoying. Just time them out. Like I don't like it. It's annoying. It's obnoxious. It's just it's just I don't know. It's like having a bunch of like really annoying kids asking the same shit over and over. So yeah, just time them out for doing that. Like people are like spamming for me to do a certain thing.
Drops in the Dire Maul dungeon, and they came in different forms. The Libram of Focus, Protection, and Rapidity. These were quest items, and when turned in along with other trade materials, you would get an item that enchanted your gear with bonus stats, along with Chandrilar reputation. 500 to be exact, not counting the human racial bonus. You started neutral with them, so to get to Exalted, you needed 84 of these Librams, along with 84 black diamonds, and depending on what Librams you had, a bunch of enchanting materials and other stuff.
Yep.
You had the Blood of Heroes, which was a rare material you could only get in the Eastern Plagueland zone. You picked these up off the ground, and it would spawn a few elites that you had to kill or run away from. You also had the Freyed Abomination Stitchlings, which dropped from Abominations in Stratholme, and Skins of Shadow, which dropped from elites in Skolemance.
Yeah, those are the fucking days.
The worst part was that the Librams were unique,
see how much damage
so you
I
could
do
only
now.
bring one of each at a time. Before the portable mailbox and mobile guild bank, You'd have to get your Librams, head to Daramal, turn in the quest, hearth back. Get
I don't
more
have any
Librams,
feathers,
and
though.
Go back to Daramal 28 times minimum and
I'd have to
84
farm them,
max.
and I'm not about to.
Have
I
mercy.
forgot to sell.
I got
I'm
to
going back.
friendly, I believe.
I gotta go
and
back.
then I realized that I was never gonna make it by the time that they introduced the Cataclysm, or like whenever the fuck it was. And I was so disappointed and sad that I didn't actually get exalted with the Shindar. It's one of the only reputations that I didn't get. I feel so fucking stupid for it, but yeah, there it is. I didn't make it. Oh well. That's why, like, nowadays, I always make sure that I get everything done, every single time. You
Well,
should feel
I guess
stupid.
they did show mercy because this reputation was removed with the Cataclysm expansion and was no longer part of the Insane title. But we still have 7 others. Let's tackle the Ravenhold first.
This was easy.
This is a ninja faction located in the
this was not that
Hillspread
hard.
foothills.
I'm just glad we have a lot of horde
Ravenhold
here now,
Manor.
because
They
before,
spend
like,
their
there was
time
like
getting
nothing but
anime
alliance in
haircuts
here
and
killing
collecting
everybody.
heavy junk boxes.
Yep.
You could only get these if you were a rogue,
Yeah, you just
but
farmed
anyone could do the
LBRS.
quest.
It was a joke.
So, if you didn't have a rogue, you'd need to straight up buy these.
Oh yeah, you did it over there
You
too. I forgot
pickpocketed
about
them
that.
off of level 50-ish enemies, and you'd turn in 5 at a time for 75 reputation. Typically, you did this just for the revered level, so that's 1400 boxes total. For neutral to revered, it was faster to kill low-level enemies. There's an enemy rogue faction called the Syndicate, and if you killed them, you got 5 rep per kill, so that was around 4200 kills total.
You would farm this.
Generally, it was
You'd farm this in the that one place in Arathi Highlands. I remember I would do this all the fucking time. I even did it on stream back in the day whenever I was originally farming this.
faster, but it really depended if others were farming there as well. Regardless though, very time consuming. Next, we have the Bloodsail Buccaneers.
Ah, come on.
This is the enemy pirate
easy.
faction found in the Stranglethorn Vale
This
Zone.
was easy.
How did you raise their reputation? Well,
Like-
you killed your allies, of course. The strategy was to
Yeah,
basically
come
murder
on.
everything in the Booty
Come
Bay questing
on,
hub,
dude.
and they would give you some reputation
Give
with the
me a
Buccaneers.
break.
The amount of kills did vary.
I could go to
Minimum
Thunder
amount of
Bluff
work
and
was
get a
starting
fuck
at
ton of
3,000
feathers right now,
was
but
hostile with the Buccaneers,
I'm
but
trying
it
to
was
finish
pretty
this
common
quest.
for people to start this grind after doing all of the quests in the zone, which would give you reputation with Booty Bay, but decrease your rep with the pirates.
I'll get the fuck
So
out
for
of
I
here.
remember
most
I did
people,
this
they
myself.
actually started
Get
weighing
the
the
fuck
negative
outta
at the hated
here, you
reputation level, which you needed
candy-ass
36,000
bitch.
points to get out of. And
It's
you would not
fucking
only be
ridiculous.
hated by the faction, but also
Boom.
the players, since people have a hard time getting quests.
Yeah, I
from
do a
the
lot of
NPCs.
fucking damage
there's that
now.
too.
But as long as you
Yeah, that's
persevered
right.
That's the
and
best part
committed
about
some
it,
goblin
actually.
genocide,
Dick
you would
sucker.
eventually reach honored after, in some cases, thousands and thousands of
Yep.
kills. As a reward, you got progress towards the title, a nifty set of clothes, and even a quest that gives you a pirate hat.
Let's be honest, with being a gnome, like, how big can your brain be, you know? Can't be too big. If the rest of your body's that small. Obviously, you weren't even smart enough to develop all the way. So, like, I mean, you saw there firsthand. It's not very smart.
The reason why the achievement stopped at honored and not exalted was because, up until a patch, most of the NPCs stopped giving reputations at that point. So realistically, that was the cap. There was, however, a single
was
goblin
one
in the
mob.
entire game that gave you
I think this should be number 1. I really can't think of any other fucking reputation right now that would be harder than this one. Listen to this. This is how you got exalted with the Bloodsail Buccaneers.
reputation past honored. His name was Jazric, and you could find him in the Badlands zone.
You would have to
He
re-kill
actually
that guy.
gave 1 reputation per kill and had a 7-minute respawn timer, probably making the reputation the most hardcore to max out.
Yep.
Although there was no real point in going past honored. Now you might
One
say that it
reputation.
doesn't count since no one actually did it, right? Let's be real here. Come on, this is the internet. Someone actually did it.
Yes.
Wigwam on the Dentarg server on US killed poor Jazric 20,999 times to become exalted. And he was followed by some others. Now that's insane. It was later changed to give 5
Yes.
reputation though.
Yes.
But there was
Yes.
a catch to this. The Insane title also needed exalted with the Steamweedle Cartel, which consisted of the 4 goblin factions, Everlook, Gadgetsan,
I don't even know what to
Ratchet,
say about
and
that.
Booty Bay. But at this point, you're hated with these factions because the only way to raise that Bloodsail reputation was to lower
It
your
was
rep
not.
with the
This
cartel.
was not hard to do. This
so
was not hard
now
to
you're
do
in
at
a
all.
pickle. Initially,
They're not in a pickle. You just you did the blood sale ones first, and then you leveled up the gadget stand ones. Like that's what everybody did. That wasn't even hard at all.
I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, you could farm this rep back up by killing pirates outside of Booty
It's
Bay,
a joke.
but this would also of course decrease that blood cell reputation. And you got a very
not
small
hard
amount
at
of
all.
reputation per kill, so it would take thousands, maybe even tens of thousands. Although it's not required for the achievement to have all of the reps at the same time, if you wanted to keep your blood cell reputation intact, you would instead head back to the Diremall instance. In the northern wing near the end of the dungeon, there is a quest to free a goblin. You had to get a key that had a chance to drop from the many bosses in the instance. Turning
The
it in
fuck?
gave you 350 reputation. He also gave a quest asking for an ogre tannin, which could be found upstairs or in a crate he leaves
This is
behind
agent
when you free
yeah,
him.
yeah. This is insane.
You'd also need some trade materials.
Holy shit.
This was repeatable infinitely, and it gave you another 75 rep per turn-in. And the best part of these, it doesn't affect your Bloodsail Buccaneers rep. And another bonus was through the process of clearing to him
So
and
you
killing
have
these
to do
bosses,
this like
you would
1,000
also get those
times.
Librams needed for the Chandra-Lar rep I mentioned earlier.
Holy fuck,
So
man.
you could knock out 2 birds with 1 stone here.
Yeah, you'd save a ton
Anyway.
of time, and that way you'd only have to spend 1,000 hours on this achievement that doesn't matter instead of 2,000. It'd be great.
Anyways, lastly we have the Dark Moon Fair at Exalted. Nowadays this isn't too bad with the reworked fair. You
Isn't
just do
too
the
bad,
daily
it's a
quests
joke.
and the rep comes pretty fast. But before the fair's revamp in patch 4.3, things were much harder, and in fact this one was the hardest out of all of the reps required
That's
for the
actually very
Insane
true.
title. You didn't have those daily quests where you play the carnival games for some quick rep. Instead, the main form of rep grinding was tied to the card decks. Also, the fair is only in town for 1 week out of the month, so the accessibility is also a problem.
It was not a problem. Like, getting rep, as soon as they added the Dark Moon Fair, like the new one in Cataclysm, it came out in like 4.3 or whatever, getting Dark Moon Fair reputation became a fucking joke. Before that, though, it was really hard. He's right about that.
So, you of course started at neutral, and from that point to 2000 into friendly, you would do a repeatable quest turn-in that required drops called Glowing Scorpid Blood.
The
You got
fuck?
this from the Silithus zone, and you turned in 10 at a time for 250 rep each from neutral to 2000 into friendly. And from this point on until Exalted, you started what's known as the card grinding. This was the worst part of the whole achievement. So, there are a handful of card decks in the game that you can turn into the fair for trinkets and other gear, but to make these decks, you need cards.
Okay.
They drop throughout the world, and if
Oh,
you were an
I would try
inscriber,
to
you
buy
could
these
make
in the
them.
auction house
They
all the
varied in
time.
quality, and getting all of the
I'd always
cards for
lose
the
track
deck
of which
gave
ones
you
I
a
had,
turning
too.
quest that
It was
gave you a
great.
trinket or an amulet, and some reputation. 350 for the epic quality decks, and 25 for the blue and green ones. So, if you had inscription, you could craft your own cards requiring a
Yeah, this
mountain
is
of
fucking
materials you
ridiculous.
got from milling herbs into inks. Or alternatively, you could just buy them off of the auction house and sell the gear if it was bind on equip. Some
Okay.
smart players would actually trade the item for other people's completed deck, along with a bit of gold as an incentive. Basically paying for the
tried doing
turn-in
this.
and the reputation you got from it.
We tried doing this back in the day on our alts because we had tried to be like, oh, we'll turn in your Dark Moon Fair trinket, and then we turned it in and log off. But that was like an idea we had, but we were never able really to execute on that because nobody trusted us because we were on like random level 1 characters, and people knew about Asmongold.
The amount of decks you needed to turn in, of course, varied depending on what quality you were doing. The max was around 1500 turn-ins if you focused on the low-level decks, and 100-ish for the purple ones.
1500.
But those were very expensive. And of course throw in different rep bonuses such as the human racial, and you could do it with less. But with that, you got the Insane title. Like I said, much easier these days with Chandra-Lar being
This is a
removed, the
joke
revamped
now,
Dark Moon, and
dude.
so on. Even still, the
They
reputations
should
tied to
change
this
it to
title
being
rank at the top as the
Asmongold,
most grindy
a little
in the
bit
game.
crazy. That's it. Not
So,
insane
that's
anymore.
about it. That's a pretty good start to this series, I think. I was thinking of
I should probably actually kill him first because I have dampen magic on. free the other guy.
Hey guys, what's up, Mad Season?
Boom.
We're back with another episode.
this the
in
Grand
hardest
Marshal
He
grind?
grind
just
series.
dies, so I don't need to fuck
No,
with him
not
anymore.
that kind
Let's
of
see.
grinding. In the last episode, we went over the Insane title in its original form, pre-Cataclysm. A pretty extreme grind, but there are others that some would argue are just as tough, if not tougher.
It's not. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean
No.
to click ahead. It was not that hard.
Hey guys,
Like
the last
Insane
episode-
was not that hard. But I did do it after Shendalar got removed. Insane on day 1 was extremely difficult to do though.
we went over the Insane title in its original form, pre-Cataclysm. A pretty extreme grind, but there are others that some would argue are just as tough, if not tougher.
Okay.
So, in no particular order, here's 5 more. First up, we have the Winter Saber Trainers, pre-Cataclysm.
Okay.
This is an
Yeah.
Alliance-only faction,
this
which
is
in
actually
its
very true.
original state, if you grinded out reputation with them until you were exalted, you would
This
get
is
the Winter
ridiculous.
Spring Frost Saber mount. Since Cataclysm, you can just do a daily quest 20 times to obtain the mount, but
There was a Draenei on my server that had this mount before they made the change. It was absolutely disgusting.
before then, it was much more grindy. You of course started at neutral and had
65
just
rep
one
per turn
repeatable
in.
quest called the Frost Saber Provisions. For this one, you had to gather 5
50
each of
fucking
shard-tooth
rep.
meat obtained from killing bears in the area, and
That's
chillwind
great.
meat obtained from chimeras. And these meats had a pretty low drop chance, around 10 to 20% I'd say. But completing this gave you 50 rep each, and the way the whole reputation worked was that you could unlock more reputable quests the higher reputation levels you obtained.
Yep, I did this.
So, at 1500 points into neutral,
I didn't do it
you
pre-nerf,
unlocked
though.
another one called the Winterfall Intrusion, which
Yep.
required you to kill 5 each of Winterfall Shamans and Ursas in a Furbolg village to the south. Again, repeatable infinitely,
Easy.
and it gave you 50
Very easy.
reputation per turn in. The last unlock was at the
Yep.
Honored level, called Rampaging
I did
Giants.
this a lot.
This required you to kill 8 elite enemies at the other end of the
17
map.
million damage.
It did give an extra
Legion, by the
25
way.
reputation, but the difficulty of the enemies and the travel time made it too
This is
slow.
fucking hard to do.
As a result, people usually just stuck with the first 2, and the general strategy was to head to the Furbolg village, and on the way there and back, kill any bears and chimeras you saw to try to complete the meat quest, and just rinse and repeat that about 800 times until you were
Obviously.
exalted. Now, this did vary depending on
I did this back in the day. It was really fucking hard. It was extremely annoying, and it's the way it goes, obviously. But I remember whenever I was trying to be really efficient with this, I actually put my hearth in Everlook so I could save about 5 minutes every hour. That's how insane this grind was. It was fucking ridiculous.
how crowded things were.
Claim you did everything. Well, I mean, it's on my armory. It's not like it's a secret if I did this.
If the village was constantly camped, it was probably worth trying to kill those elites all the way on the other end of the map. Easier said than done though if we're talking current content.
It's not
So
that hard.
that's a lot of grinding to say the least. Next, let's go over one that only takes 1 kill. It's our first non-reputation grind, and that's the Time Lost Proto Drake.
Yep.
That sounds pretty easy. Just
Easy.
1 kill. He spawns in the Storm Peak zone in Northrend, and he even drops
It's
him
easy.
out at a 100%
Everybody
chance.
has this mount nowadays.
So, what the
Everybody
heck is
has
he doing
it.
on this list? Well, for a few reasons. One is, he doesn't spawn at any one location. There are a few different eligible...
Think about this. Greek got this mount. Like, you know what? Let me show you guys. Look at this right here. Time Lost Proto Drake. 7 years ago. Greek God X.
Oh my god! I just got the time now! Yes! Oh my god! I just got the time lost project! Oh my
There it
god!
is, dude.
They call it time lost for a fucking reason, because I spent about a week! A week! Yeah!
Just imagine him doing like this.
Yes! Yes! I come back from eating lunch. I was like, you know what? I'll have some lunch. I come back. All I could hear was this, right? This is what I could hear, alright? This is my add-on. This is what it finds, right? Add-ons, NPC. I could hear this. I was like, wow! Wow!
I had the same add-on.
And
I
then
literally
just
had
see
the
time
exact
on
same
project on
add-on.
that thing, and I shit myself! Okay, guys, I'm gonna make a Minecraft video pretty soon. Love you, bye.
Okay, there you go. That was a great video. So yeah, Greek God X, the WoW legend, he actually almost got the Time Lost Proto Drake before me. Actually, he might have. He might have gotten the Time Lost Proto Drake before I did. I really hope that's not the case. I've been farming it for 10 years, I still don't have it. Then you haven't been farming it for 10 years.
Full spawn points. And he doesn't sit still. He patrols the area on a set flight path, and you have to keep an eye on about 50% of the zone. He also has a respawn timer that varies between 8ish to 20ish hours. It seems random. But he doesn't always spawn. He actually shares a spawn with another flying dragon called Viragosa, and no one cares about her really. It's also not a 50-50 chance. In fact, it seems like the Proto-Drake is almost a rare spawn of Viragosa, meaning that normally Viragosa spawns at these points, and the Time Lost has a small chance of spawning instead.
That's a very good.
And to top it all off, even to this day, nearly 9 years later, it's still heavily camped, and if you go to the Storm Peaks, you're pretty much guaranteed to have multiple people waiting at each spawn point. So, in essence, we have a rare spawn that rarely spawns every 8 to 20ish hours from another rare spawns at 4 different locations, who also patrols around 50% of the zone depending on where it spawned. And it's also heavily camped 9 years after the release of its expansion. There's a reason why it's called the Time Lost Proto-Drake. Alternatively though, you can just buy it off of the black market auction house, if it pops up there that is, and if you have a mountain of gold. Next.
That's a joke, okay? Like getting the Time Lost Proto Drake. Here's what I would do to get the Time Lost Proto Drake. I would literally just go AFK. Like that's the only thing. I went AFK for long enough, and the mount eventually spawned. Like it wasn't really a grind. You just had to sit there for a long time. And our spawn time was nerfed. I don't even fucking know, because nowadays, if one person tags the Time Lost Proto Drake and you're in a group of 5 people, all 5 people get the mount. You guys might not know that, but yeah. So you should farm the Time Lost Proto Drake in groups of 5. That way everybody gets the mount.
We have some PvP reputations, and this is where people's experiences may have varied.
Oh, they changed it? Okay,
Specifically, I wanted to talk about the Arathi Basin reputation, which is the League of Aerithor for Alliance and Defilers for Horde,
This was a joke,
and
dude.
the Warsong Gulch reputations, which were the
This only
Silverwing
took like
Sentinels
500
for the
hours.
Alliance, and Warsong Outriders for
Yeah,
Horde.
at most
Again,
500
talking
hours.
pre-Cataclysm here, these took a very long time to grind. I think they still take a decent amount of time to get to Exalted, but before the release of Crossroad Battlegrounds way back when, it was ridiculous. In my case specifically, I was on the Khadgar server on the Alliance side, and we vastly outnumbered the Horde in population.
It was not hard.
As a result, it wasn't uncommon for queue times to be hours long even during prime time, and to top it all off, we sucked. To get reputation with these factions, we had to cap flags in the Warsong Gulch, or get a certain amount of resources in the Arathi Basin.
Just 4 more.
In the case of my server for the Alliance, it was nearly impossible.
Oh, I can pick these up now. I keep skipping them because I keep thinking my inventory's full.
The only thing that made it possible was that, back then, you could get these tokens for playing the battleground. If you won, you got 3, and if you lost, you only got 1. And, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe you could turn in 3 at a time for a bit of honor and a small amount of reputation.
You got 100 reputation.
And in my case, that was the main way of grinding it out, since we very rarely won either battleground.
The reason why it says 2.1 billion is that was the max integer number in WoW back then, and that was the case until I think Warlords of Draenor, and then that's whenever they were able to change it. And yeah, that's because the reason I know that is that's how like Raw Den like got bugged out, because his health went higher than that, and that's why all of the bosses before then, or sorry, after then in Siege of Orgrimmar, for some reason or another, had under that number health.
These marks were removed a while ago in the Wrath of the Lich King expansion, I believe. So, this was definitely a case-by-case basis, For
I'm
my
doing a lot more
situation
damage now, that's for
specifically,
sure.
If you were Horde on my server, you definitely had an easier time. Fast queue times and easy wins most of the time.
Easy.
Or if you just waited until post 1.12, which is when they released the Crossrealm Battlegrounds.
I remember
Even
being a
still, though,
mage
it was pretty
at like
insane.
level 20
It's hard to say
and
which
going
one is
against other
harder.
mobs at level
Overall,
20.
the Arathi Basin
I had to be
ranked
so
lower, I
careful.
think, but you got reputation per X amount of resources.
But now
so
it's just
you were
like
at least guaranteed some reps,
bloom,
unless you just got
or
5
bloom,
I would say-
boom,
I would say
900
almost
crit,
100%
and then they
mine, too.
burn,
possibility of 5 capping the other team.
and then they fucking burn for an additional 168 to 172, and I'm assuming that crits it with the base damage, right? I'm assuming, I could be wrong. And then since I crit, they burn for an additional 40% of the spell's damage over 4 seconds. It's a lot of fucking damage. It might not be like... It might not be, like my Warlock in our playthroughs fucking damage, but it's pretty close. Let me see if I can take care of this motherfucker real quick. Nope. Almost did. That's a bummer, actually. Anyway. Like, it might not be like that much damage, but for being a level 42, it's a lot of damage. What was that? I don't even remember what the fuck I was critting when my no more lock. I really don't. It was something absolutely outlandish. I know I was 3-shotting, 2-shotting sometimes even mobs that were my level in the Outlands. Like you start off like you to mobs your level starting from level 1. This is you, this is mobs, okay? Starting from level 1. It's like this, right? But then, like, picture both are moving up, but I'm not going to keep moving my hands up as it goes, so just picture that it's always moving up. And then eventually, as you get to like level 5, level 10, level 20, and then you get to some point around like level 35. At least with mages. I'm sure every class is a different power spike. But at least with mages. Get around level 35, and then from there, it just... You just start fucking sailing. It's nothing. Now, obviously, I wasn't prepared for that fight. I should have been. I shouldn't have been by the patrol route. That's for sure. But that's okay. One thing about like classic WoW, you can't make mistakes. You just can't. Also, I'm a level 42 in my paladin, so I'm gonna go every 5 levels. Once I hit level 45 on my mage here, I'm gonna switch back to my paladin until he's level 45, and I'm gonna come back to my mage. Did I res in the wrong spot? Oh, sure did. Wow, that's a really expensive spell now. He's gonna attack me. No? Alright. Well, I'm just gonna fuck you. You fucking scumbag. Just two more. Just fucking two more, man. Just two more. Actually, no, I'm having dinner now, so